Welcome aboard, guys. Hosted by Wingman. We've got a very special guest joining us today. Apologies if I sound a bit unwell. I just got back from the Philippines, and Theo just got back from Nepal. So we're both suffering from third world countries' food diets, I think.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a cough myself. I think I don't want to blame Nepal. It was probably the plane and
Yeah.
all us visiting Nepal.
Yeah, tell everyone quickly, Theo, what happened when you were there. That was insane.
Yeah, we couldn't have picked probably the worst time to go to Nepal in 30 years. The day I landed, there was a Gen Z sort of protest about a ban on social media, which turned into a violent sort of riot, and they sort of they started bashing all the government officials because they think they're corrupt, and they bashed the prime minister's wife to death. The finance minister got killed. 54 people got killed. They had to bring in the army and impose curfews on the streets. And this is right when I was landing. Had to go straight to the hotel and not leave. Then they shut down the airport, so I couldn't even leave. But I got work done at least. I was there meeting a business partner of ours that has an offshore team there, and we just were in lockdown the hotel. It was an Indian hotel that I was staying at, and so I was eating Indian food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a whole week. It was quite enjoyable.
Intense. Do you reckon that'll impact the country much over the next few years?
This is probably the worst it's been literally over 30 years. There is some valid reasons why the Gen Z feel like, that things are wrong. Like there's clear corruption in the government officials. Like they're selling power to India for whilst they have blackouts themselves, but the politicians keep the money from the powers selling. Even things like there's no water, town water in Kathmandu, but they're surrounded by the most, lush mountains, but full of rivers, and they're just not putting the water in the pipes because I think they've got some sort of deal with the trucks that go around and fill up all the tanks. So it's just corruption is definitely, in full force, and I think the next generation is like, we've got no power, we've got no water. You guys are living the best life. Like, come on, you know.
Fascinating.
Put
Fascinating.
makes you really appreciate places like Sydney. As soon as I landed in Australia and I saw order, just trying to get a taxi, I was just like, wow, we live in a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah. We just had at the Wingman Group. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Jonathan Bell. I'm the founder of Wingman, and Theo's a good friend and a client of ours. And we just did our annual. I got one of our guests who was there. We've got Andrew Best. Hello, Andrew. Andrew is just in the Philippines with us, but we just did our annual trip to the Philippines, and we took Australia 80 Aussies, and we had about 400 of our Filipinos. We rented an island. We called it Wingman Island, and when we were driving there, I think it was about 100 kilometers away, and it took 5.5 hours to get there in a bus because the traffic is so bad, and you're just driving past the slums. And same thing there, like the word I came home with was humiliated because I was like, if I complain about anything ever again,
Yeah.
and there's people living in those conditions, like it makes you not sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't believe over there that every building needs to have a generator and water tanks just to have, power and water. And like it's not that unusual if you just might have a few days without power or water.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just like,
crazy.
wow, we turn on the tap and it's great. We're not worried about outages. We're just worried about the cost of power.
Yeah. So we'll get into it. Theo runs is the founder and CEO of a business called Shore Financial, which I'm sure you all know. It's the largest independent brokerage in the country. Settled $2 billion in loans in 12 months, which is mind-boggling. He's got 10 brokers that are in the top 100 in Australia, and 32 brokers across his firm as well. So I'm super excited to have Theo on here today and share a little bit about his story, some of the things that's helped him and supported him become as successful as he's become, and answer any questions from all of you on here today. So please feel free to make it as interactive as possible. Right towards the end as well, we've got a QR code that you can download with some of the tips and tricks for everyone as well. So Theo, can you take us back to pre-broking? How old were you when you got into it, and what were you doing before getting into broking?
So, geez, I was pretty much a teenager. I through university, I started working at Commonwealth Bank. I was actually originally before that doing a sales job, knocking on doors, selling Foxtel. And one door that I knocked on was an area manager at CBA, and he said, "Why don't you come work at the bank in sales?" I was just like, "Sales at the bank? Geez, that what are you selling?" Like, doesn't sound appealing. And sent my resume, and 3 months later, they gave me a call and offered me a job into the branch network. And in the branch network is where I got into lending. So I was at CBA for 3 years. Then I bought my first property when I was at the bank, and I got my loan through a broker, ironically. Even though I was a lending specialist at CBA, I got a better deal and a higher borrowing power through a broker. So then I realized maybe I'm on the wrong team. I was one of the guys at CBA that used to really bag brokers as well. I was like, "Oh, you're not using a broker? God, they're dodgy." Um, so quite ironic that I then the broker I used, I picked up the phone and gave him a call and said, "Hey, have you got a job for me?" And he was a broker working at the McGrath network, Oxygen Home Loans. So that's where we got, I guess, the formula where we perfected the formula of the synergy between real estate agents and mortgage brokers, and sort of designing a service that was complementary to real estate agents and real estate businesses. So what I mean by that is that we had the concept of mortgage brokers working with real estate agents wasn't a new one, but it wasn't done that well. Brokers were just saying, "Hey, I'll give you $500 or something like that for a referral for a home loan." But we went a bit above and beyond that, and we really wanted to support the real estate business and the real estate agents themselves, and we really integrated our services to make them better at their job. Just give more, I guess, transparency and more productive and efficient in getting sort of approvals in place in time for clients wanting to go to auctions, and just also combining content, putting some of our finance content in their real estate content in their newsletters and whatnot. Just little things like widgets and inquiry forms on sort of websites and campaigns. That wasn't a real thing back then, which was 2011 and 12. So I was at Oxygen for 2 years. That's where I met my business partner, Alex Knocker. We were some of the main writers there, and we heard that John McGrath was going to sell Oxygen to John Simons, Aussie Home Loans. And so we started negotiating our position because we did so much of the volume. We're like, "Hey, there's 30 brokers here, but there's 3, 4 of us that do like 70% of the volume. We don't want this business being sold from underneath us to John Simons." And those negotiations didn't go so well. Thankfully, they didn't go so well in hindsight. Excuse me. So then we left and started a Shore Financial in 2013, January 2013, and we basically replicated that formula that was working so well for us at Oxygen at McGrath. And but instead of being exclusive to one real estate brand, we designed a business that was going to partner up with real estate businesses throughout Australia. We had a good opportunity when we started. We started with a contractor service R&W, the Richardson and Wrench network. Excuse me, guys, got a bit of an itch. And then, we sort of slowly signed up more and more real estate partners. Got 2,500 real estate partners now, 2,400. And yeah, we now. In our early years, that was a real big part of our volume. I think at one point it was like 60 to 70% of our volume was real estate referred volume, but now it probably makes up about 9%, 10%. So now we're just focusing on the brand. We do a lot more digitally online for lead gen, but we just do brand awareness sort of campaigns to bring inbound inquiry and whatnot.
And so what was the things that you did to appeal to a real estate agent to get those referrals that other businesses hadn't done in the past?
So it wasn't rocket science. We were just, acting the way a real estate agent would act themselves with buyers. So what I might mean by that is just, getting back to inquiry straight away. And that's a no-brainer. But, the real estate agents at McGrath were used to sending leads to brokers, and the brokers would like call them days later and come back and update the agent. We were just prompt in calling the lead straight away, updating straight away, giving visibility in a legal way, keyword in a legal way. So what I mean by that, our privacy consent forms gave us the discretion in sharing certain particulars with the agent. We did that in a sensitive way, obviously, but we would say if someone was a time waster or not, and let them know if they could, get to the level needed by the vendor or agent. We'd also just tell them if they're just not going to get the approval in time, because there's an incredible amount of time wasters that go through open homes and start making offers where they're not even in a position to purchase. They're just, I think they get excited by negotiating, or they're impressing someone else by doing so. But we just gave them that transparency and visibility, so they knew who to focus on. And most importantly, a bit of the secret sauce is um, reciprocal referrals, right? With a bit of longevity, it doesn't happen overnight, but long term, you can start supporting the agents back, and looking for potential listings or vendors that are looking to sell. This day and age, especially, so many buyers go through open homes. They get called by the agent, and the agent says, "Are you going to look at selling a property when you buy?" And the buyer just goes, "No, because I know if I say yes, you're going to call me all the time," basically, is what they're thinking. So they lie to the agent. They don't tell the true intentions, but when they speak to the broker, they can't lie. And so we would put that person back in touch and saying, "Hey, look, so and so is a credible agent. We trust they'll give us an accurate appraisal. We need the accurate appraisal to factor into our sale proceeds and feasibility moving forward. So can we get that person to come over to give an appraisal?" And that support, you don't need to do that often. You do that once or twice a year, and that agent is your best friend for life.
That's awesome. I love it. It's the giver's gain, right? Is being
Yeah,
to give. Like if you're gifting an agent a 30 to $50,000 com, I
yeah.
think there's a lot of loyalty that then gets built from that.
And even if they don't get the listing, right? If you just get their shoe in the door, if they get a look in thanks to you, and if you give them 5, 10 look-ins a year, you're their best partner. No other broker in the past has done that for them, that you probably find out.
Yeah. And run me through, Theo, some of the things that you think has helped you become as successful as you've been running a business at scale. Because obviously the largest in the country. Are there a few key pillars that you think that have created that success?
Yeah, I just want to, that one question's a good one that popped up on the screen. Referral fees, are they paid both ways? It's a really good point. No, we don't accept commissions from real estate agents. Firstly, you need a real estate license to do so. And I know, you can get away with maybe taking a referral fee from a real estate agent, but we've got a credible business and we don't want to do anything uncompliant. So no, we don't take kickbacks from real estate agents. But yes, we pay referral fees to agents in a compliant way where we disclose it on our compliance documents. So you'd think I'm mad. I'm paying referral fees when I'm not taking them. But that's a part of our value proposition, because we're generally getting the listing opportunities from the real estate agent. So we'll pay them for the introduction, but asking for a referral fee back on a lead that they gave us in the first place, it's not really fair. Your question, Johnny, some pillars. What have been the key foundations that have led to success? I would say, firstly, obvious one, people. Behind every good business is great people. We've had some great people in our business from day one, and we just support people being their own leaders in the business, maybe to our detriment, because we've had people that have left us over the years and then become our competitors. But we think if they build a great business as a competitor, it's a testament to our platform that it breeds good brokers. So we're not fussed by that, as long as they learn something and achieve something on here at Shore Financial. Then together we've achieved something. So obviously we like them to stay. We've got lots of brokers that have been here for 10 years plus now, or around 10 years, let's say. But yeah, we're proud of our culture in attracting good people, and we like to build their profiles and make them leaders and business owners as such. Another key one is process. So where we've from day one always looked at evolving our process, and we've always done things, I guess, different to what the industry was doing, and always been somewhat more new age. Now, when I say somewhat more new age, that wasn't really doing much to be new age 10 years ago. So even having a social strategy 10, 12 years ago was new age. So like using using Facebook and Instagram to promote the business 10, 12 years ago was new age. And we got a great brand awareness by doing that. I feel like we were one of the first brokerages really going hard on socials. That worked for us from it helped us from a point of view of partnerships, real estate agents, clients, and also recruitment. So that really helped. Even new age in the sense of just using a CRM system, right? Like nowadays that's like quite common, but 10, 12 years ago, the industry wasn't really using CRM systems. And even today, the average broker doesn't really use a CRM system properly. They think that an aggregation platform is a CRM system. It is not. A CRM system is much more more targeted marketing than any of the aggregators application platforms. So things like Salesforce or HubSpot are CRMs, not Mercury or Broker Engine or Flex or any of those
Can
ones.
you run us through how you run yours then, Theo?
Well, we're going through a big overhaul right now. We're actually we're pulling all of our data and putting it into a data lake, and we then all the various systems that we use goes into that data lake, and then we run things like HubSpot off the back of it. So when I say various systems, yes, our application processing platform, which is SalesTrekker. I personally think SalesTrekker is the best application platform in the industry. Keyword application platform. You can use it as a CRM, but it is not by definition a CRM in my opinion. HubSpot is far more powerful as a CRM, and you've got to realize CRMs like HubSpot and Salesforce are global CRM platforms. They're industry agnostic, and they're billion-dollar businesses, right? I think HubSpot's worth like 20 billion and Salesforce is $100 billion or something like that. And with that type of scale, they're investing so much money in that tech that nothing that you'll ever do yourself, if you want to build proprietary technology or if you want to use something in our industry, it's never going to have the same scale and money spent on it like these platforms do. So yeah, we systems that plug into our cloud. We also have a financial planning business. So, platforms like My Prosperity gives live banking feeds in perpetuity that plugs into that. So you want your data somewhere else, which you can control and manipulate, especially with the future of AI. So I think that's the way that many industries are going, not just ours. Many industries are pulling their data out of whatever platforms they use and controlling it in a different data lake. A data lake or a data cloud just being something like Microsoft Azure or Amazon warehouse services, and then you can build an interface over it, and that's not that costly. Depends what you want to achieve. It's not that hard to do.
Yeah. Run me through so you got 32 brokers. You've got what are your brokers spending their times doing? Then I know you've got some support onshore and then offshore. Can you run through the structure of how you've structured your people in your business that you've said is a big part of the success you've had?
Yeah, so I guess that I should have explain a bit more about the process in terms of how we've constantly evolved that, and that's been a key success factor. And that would definitely come down to centralizing our processing. So we made a decision, I reckon, was it 7, 8 years ago? So quite early on in the business, we didn't start with centralized processing. So we're kind of like a franchise model, being a contractor model, where every broker runs their own business. And initially, we used to support brokers in getting their own support staff and assistants, but then everyone had their own sort of like distribution centers running different processes, and there was no real efficiencies across the business. It was like we were, building up little distribution centers internally. So we centralized that about 7, 8 years ago. That was not that easy to do because you couldn't just force people to do things once they're got these agreements in place that they don't have to do that. So we had to build centralized services which they had the option of using, and we could only make it make it an option, or they could only take up the option if it's really appealing. So we really invested a lot in the ideal process, which is all about initially a triage team that makes sure that there's quality submissions. So the broker does all the credit work. We do have credit people that brokers dial into on a case-by-case basis, but application processing, our team either is on or off the team. You can't just pick to do one application with. It's either you're using centralized processing or you're not. And the reason being is because there's a whole team of individuals at different point of the process that step in. So triage, it's all about quality. And that's, I reckon, one of the most important things to get right in your business, making sure there's good handover notes from the broker to the processing individual, making sure that someone's actually going through and checking supporting docs thoroughly before submitting the application. That makes such a big difference to your overall sort of capacity and also just the client experience, right? So it's not going back and forth with the bank with sort of outstanding information requests. Then we have separate loan processors, which actually manage the whole application process and communicate with the client. So we don't think that the broker should be going back and forth with the bank or the client on outstanding information requests. That's what the loan processor does. We think the broker should just be out there building relationships on the phone, still maintaining communication. So the loan processor CCs the broker in all communication, and we encourage the broker to pick up the phone here and there with the client, but not pick up the phone with the bank unless needed. If it's credit critical questions that's going through something that the assessor is not so sure about the servicing, of course, the broker is best for that phone call, but just limiting input from the broker is our goal with the application processing team. And then the third team at the back of that's post-settlement. They take over the moment the loan is funded, introduce themselves, do the annual reviews, handle any sort of ongoing pricing negotiations, switch requests. So that's all the centralized processing. And then separate, we have credit, which, like I said, it's case by case for people that might have a support staff that goes away, or in fact takes leave, or if they just are at capacity themselves and need some help.
And what does the credit team do?
They actually basically do the job of the broker, really. They package up the whole loan. So they look at all the supporting docs, figure out which lender's best, do really detailed notes. I have to say, I shouldn't admit this, but some of the credit staff are doing a better job of packaging the loan than the brokers. A lot of the brokers are focused at business development and sales, right? And I'd say traditionally, I might get a lot of people that will disagree with me on this, but a really good broker generally is not that good at the back end processing and credit. A really good broker generally is a salesperson that's really great at building relationships and getting referrals and winning clients. And their attention to detail sometimes isn't ideal, so they should always hire accordingly. And that's what we feel that credit does. It's that hire accordingly department where they're a bit more detailed and thorough. They've got a bit more patience and time into looking into the credit options too, right? Because I feel like once you start writing big volume, brokers just are not patient. They're worried about the next thing they're going to move on to, and they just don't get enough attention on the matter.
So do you think if you're a broker and you're bogged down doing the BD, the credit and the loan processing, and you want to grow, is that all about freeing you up to continue to do that relationship building stuff?
So 20 years ago, you could do that. In my opinion, today, that's not sustainable. The industry has changed so much that you just can't do it all yourself. And if you do it all yourself, you're just limiting your overall scale, your overall volume. It's just that now with compliance and with the amount of lenders out there with various products, various policies, it's quite an encompassing process. So if you're trying to do it all yourself, you're really not sort of meeting your full potential. In saying that, in our sort of onboarding program with new brokers, we only hire sort of novices to the industry generally, and we do make brokers in the sort of training program do an application process for the first at least 10 applications from start to finish, so they understand what needs to be done. But then once you've got enough volume, I think you need to be hiring accordingly. The credit, maybe it would be the last one in the mix to hire. The first is the low-hanging fruit being the data entry, the loan processing. And then once you've got scale, then maybe look at credit, because credit's harder to find, and you do need to invest time in training, right? So, with Wingman themselves, sure, Wingman find great individuals that might have relevant experience, but you need to spend time building rapport with these people. Don't treat them as just sort of some online relationship. You got to be screen sharing and treat them like there's someone in your office and your team here in Australia. Nurture them into being a valued support person in your business.
And so what do you get your offshore support doing in your business through Wingman?
Bit of all those things, really. It's kind of when we see fit, when we need a role filled, we're always sort of looking for roles, I guess. But it's also it comes down to when you guys find us a person that's appropriate. So we always have the feeling of hire slow and fire fast. So as soon as someone is not the right fit, we move on. But we also take time to make sure they are the right fit. That's a cliche sort of Harvard business philosophy: hire slow, fire fast. And that's not just for loan processors and offshore staff, but that should also go for anyone in your business, right? Especially if they're a broker representing your brand.
100%. And we got a question in here around your brokers. Are you happy, if you're happy to share, what does the remuneration structures look like for a broker within Shore Financial?
I should give my whole business plan, right? But no, I'm happy to share. There's no harm in sharing all the stuff that we do because we haven't really reinvented the wheel. We just had a bit more of a solid crack at it. So we make our was the question that commercial terms or actual income?
How do you pay your brokers in terms of base plus commissions or
No,
anything?
so they're contractors mostly. We have had salary brokers in the past, but we find that the salary is only short term. So they use the salary for the first year or two, and then once they're up and running, they move to contractor. The question was both, please. So commercial terms, they sort of start at 50 to 60% of the 50 to 60% commission splits of the overall revenue, both upfront and trail, 50 being for the leads that we give from our marketing initiatives or partners, and 60 being for their own word of mouth. That's only for like the first year or two whilst they're in the mentor program and using our in-house learning development manager to sort of get them up and running. Then they go to 70% after the 30 mil. And then we have tiers all the way up to 80 based on loan book milestones. And loan book milestones, meaning your loan book portfolio, the higher up it goes, the higher your commission rate goes on all new loans funded. So you can rewrite your book at the higher splits too. We like our incentive structure to be on loan book because that shows customer retention, customer satisfaction. We don't want our performance and sort of remuneration incentives, our KPIs and remuneration incentives to be around annual volume, because it's all well and good if you're a rock star writing lots of loans, but how many of your clients actually like you and stay with you? The latter is much more important. And so many brokers don't focus on retention; they all focus on acquisition. Bear in mind on those splits, they don't. The centralized processing is an option to dial in for. Like I said, newer contracts, we've made it mandatory. So our legacy agreements of 4 or 5 years plus, where it was optional 4 or 5 years ago or more was optional. Now it's the 10% that we charge for centralized processing, which covers all of those things, excluding credit, is built into those splits. So either 60 or 70 is where they get to. In terms of remuneration, we're proud that we've got a really high performing team. Like Johnny was saying, I'm not one to gloat, but we have been the highest, the largest independent brokerage in Australia for I think 8 or 9 years now. We do close to 2 billion in annual settlements. We've got almost I think 10 brokers in the top 100. So we've got a top 10 right over 100. We've got about 5 doing around 150 or more. Our average across the 32 brokers in our team is about 85 million, which is about 5 times the average of the industry average being 18 million. So to answer the question of remuneration, you could work backwards on the economics of that, but they all make good income. Does everybody work from the office? That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. You've asked some good questions, this individual, but I am a big believer of working from the office, and I have very little patience for people that are constantly calling from home and wanting to be trained something and screen share. It's just not productive and efficient. I appreciate people have families and people have reasons to work from home, and maybe there's the old argument that the commute is 45 minutes to the office or whatnot. But I believe that if you're going to commute half an hour to an hour, you may as well do the commute, because you'll get way more efficiency and productivity achieved in that day of working from the office. But to answer the question, in a contractor model, I can't actually force them to work from the office. So we just provide so many resources and support in-house, and even the office itself is so collaborative, with a breakout area and this podcast room for people to film content, or do Zoom sessions like this with somebody else. And we've got all these sort of rooms they can book to work privately from the day. And with the size of the team, there's about 50 people here in the Sydney office. Let's say at any given day during the week, there's probably about 60% of that team here, maybe more, maybe some days 70 or 80%. There's never really 100% of the team here at one day, very rare, maybe on like a photo shoot day or something like that. But with that many people come in to collaborate, right? So, you've got a team of high performing brokers sitting around you. Even if it's half the team in there, there's 15 or so people, 15 brokers, which you could ask a question to and get an answer from 5 different people in different ways on a scenario. So that sort of break us, we like to promote and say it's more conducive to sharing and learning if you come into the office. So we do try and emphasize working from the office.
Love it. Hey, Brooklyn, can you grab this QR code? Guys, for everyone who is bogged down and struggling on what to be able to delegate, and if you're doing that whole process and haven't structured the loan processing, credit, and then the BD team, download this QR code. It's got every single list that you should not be doing if you're a broker, and you should be able to offshore within your business. I thought I'd share as well quickly, because Theo and I have been speaking about this. We'll put the link in the chat for you, Ben, as well. So a really interesting story. So there's two types of offshore that you could have in your business. There's the ones who you hire through a company like Wingman, and then there's a lot of brokers as well have the direct staff, where they've employed the staff directly over from the Philippines, and they have them as independent contractors. So in June this year, a Filipino was working for an Australian-based business as an independent contractor. But because they were only working for that company, they were working 9 to 5, and they were getting paid a regular income, they technically were an employee. So this business fired this Filipino staff member. And because they fired this Filipino staff member, the Filipino said, well, I'm actually not an independent contractor. I'm an employee. And because I've been working for an Australian business, I'm an Australian employee. So what happened is they went to Fair Work, and Fair Work actually accepted the case, and she won the case. The Filipino won the case, which means she's now been deemed as an Australian employee, which ultimately means that she gets paid Australian wages, back paid to the time that she was in the company. There's payroll tax issues. And there's also the unfair dismissal claim as well. So it's tens of thousands of dollars, which I found really interesting. Theo and I have been collaborating on this, and part of the relationship of working together. So if you do have staff members in the Philippines and they are direct, your business is at substantial risk. There's a lot of cases going on in the Philippines about this now as well. So at Wingman, we have an under our wing model, which means that if you've got a direct staff and you want them to be safe and have compliance risk, we can hire that staff member through Wingman. We charge a fee to be able to manage them, but nothing changes on your end. And it's something, if you wanted to reach out to, we've got Tom Griffin on the call here as well. So if you want to reach out to Wingman, and we can support in that space.
Just to echo or add on to that point, yes, it's also a risk protection strategy from a compliance point of view with everything that you were sort of outlining, but also you made a brief comment about payroll tax. Now, there is a big push from the Office of State Revenue and many states about payroll tax and the whole contractor versus employee issue. And loan market, got hit with a fine that was going back and forth which they were appealing. And the most recent ruling was that anyone that was the most recent ruling with loan market, which you could sort of rest your hat on as a case study and assume would apply to all the relevant businesses, was that just to give more background, actually, if people don't know what I'm actually even talking about, basically, if you've got contractors in your business, even technically yourself with your own entity, let's say a cliche model I see in the industry is maybe 2 or 3 brokers that have band together and they've got a joint company and they're working within the business. Technically, that's under grouping. You're meant to be paying payroll tax on commission revenue. And also any wages, so support staff locally, assistants and whatnot, you're meant to be paying payroll tax of, call it 5.5%. And trail as well. Now, there is an exemption if you have 2 or more employees in your entity that's contracting to the mothership, the head company, that contractor is definitely a contractor and not employee, and payroll tax doesn't apply. By offshoring and using someone like Wingman, the offshore staff are included in that 2 or more employee exemption. However, if they're your own offshore staff and you have your own entity or contractors and you're just providing it to your own brokers or people in your team, that doesn't count. It needs to be at arm's length. And that was the case study with Loan Market. They ruled that they had an offshoring business which brokers were using, and Loan Market don't actually own the offshore business. It's a strategic partnership, but anyone using those offshore staff were considered in the 2 or more employee exemption. 2 or more being, if you've got an entity and you're paying yourself a wage, you're one of those people. So you just need 1 support staff.
Love it. Thanks, Theo. So anyone, feel free to reach out. You're looking for a loan processor, credit analyst, or you're bogged down and need to write more business. Happy to support or reduce your compliance risk. One more question for you, Theo.
Yeah.
If you're I'm 29. If you were talking to your 29-year-old self and you could give one piece of advice, what would it be?
Geez, I would have probably gone, despite everything I just said about, we were doing things in a new age way, I would have done some of these things with tech sooner in terms of the data cloud and not rely on the aggregation platforms to be the backbone of our business. I would have moved our information or our customer client information into a proper CRM like HubSpot or Salesforce or something similar a while ago. We were using Microsoft Dynamics at one point, but it's come a long way since then. Dynamics has, so we weren't that happy with it, and we couldn't get things to talk back then, as in platforms with APIs were very limited. Now that's become a lot easier, and especially with AI, you can just sort of screen scrape a lot easier. But probably just would have gone a bit harder at technology sooner. It's still not too late, I'd say. So some of you going, geez, I'm not doing any of this. It's never too late to start all these initiatives. Some people are saying, what is a data cloud? It's just a database online where you put all your information. So on your average application, there's 650 data sets. A data set being 600 fields for a data set. Fields being name, number, email, income, various forms of income, assets like home contents, all those sort of fields you put into a apply online application. There's up to 650 fields that you can fill in. And a data cloud or a data lake is a database which stores all that information on your customers. And then with a really fancy CRM, you can use that information in strategic ways to market to them. So for example, if you want to offer car loans or equipment finance or whatnot, you can look at all the people that have car loans or equipment finance in your database, in your data lake, and then send them equipment finance offers and things like that. Not that easy to do that in an application platform. You've got to pull it out manually and run campaigns manually, where in a CRM, you can just press a button and run the campaigns and it sort of change the campaigns on an ongoing basis. Very worth doing.
Love it. Thank you, Theo. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Until next time. See you guys.
Thanks, guys.